Hi, I'm Sharaad Kuttan and welcome to Let's Talk, the show that brings you the most important conversations in the arts, culture and in ideas. Today we're going to be looking at the story. It's an ongoing story about how the arts community and creative industries coping with the facts on the ground around the pandemic, around the recession that's hit us, and questions of what kind of support systems are being made available for them. Now, my guests today, one of whom is kind of almost regular guest, Izan Satrina Mohd Sallehuddin. She's the founding CEO of the Cultural Economy Development Agency, or CENDANA. We've talked to her many times about what CENDANA is doing and what the state, what the government, at least federal government, is doing in order to support the creative industries. Also with us today, Koggelavani Muniandy. She is a director of Goodkids Malaysia, recipient of the arts organization funding program that CENDANA runs. So we're going to learn more about what is happening, but thank you both for being here, both of you. Let's start with you, Izan. I know, broad picture, we've asked you for this before, you had that survey. Is there a follow-up? It's been several months now. What are we learning about the shape of the crisis, especially as it's reverberating through the creative industries?
Well, I think from the first survey that was conducted, measuring the impact of COVID-19 on the arts, we have then followed up with a survey to measure whether Malaysian audiences will return to arts activities and venues, whether they will come back even during RMCO. Now, 92% of them don't feel safe leaving home.
92%?
Yes, it's quite a big number. Now, we did the survey together with certain organizations and using their database. So, for example, KLPAC, PR Worldwide, Ilham Gallery, Sabah Art Gallery, and the response is alarming. It also shows that they will return to these venues and activities between 2 months to a year. So that sort of data was very important to us to sort of carve out the necessary programs to support the scene, because at the end of the day, after all the restrictions are lifted, we want to make sure there is still an art scene and ecosystem left.
Yeah, I mean, that's extraordinary, you know, because I'm thinking, when I go to the market, I see lots of people, right? So what is the difference between people jostling about for their vegetables and people sitting in a theater? And that is something perhaps that artists themselves have to think about, right, the venues. Koggelavani, Kogi, can I call you that? Let's talk about Goodkids Malaysia. If you could just tell us a little bit about what you do and how your business model, the way you work, the work you do with children, how is it impacted by this pandemic?
So Goodkids Malaysia is a social enterprise. We do programs for our beneficiary group, which are children and youth from the B40 community. We use arts and counseling. We combined both of that because we see that's a very powerful transformation tool, which is what is needed by these kids. And we bring it into the community so that we can see a holistic transformation for the whole community. It's very important for a community to see what is happening with the kids, with the youth, so that they can believe in this methodology that we use. And on the other side, we also have our business arm. We have a training arm called Mind Movers. This is the arm that actually generates revenue and it supports whatever the beneficiary work that we do. However, it's very new, so at the moment we only generate about 20% of what we need to run the beneficiary program.
Right. But I want to understand is, in the work that you do, the business side of it, involves training. And training, in some strange way, also involves bringing people together, often in a very intense interaction. How is that impacted by this? I mean, are you getting a sense from potential clients or clients that you've had about their willingness or reluctance to return to a training environment?
Yeah, so just before the pandemic hit, we had a big corporate client who signed up for mental health training. It was stress at work, how to manage stress at work. But once the pandemic hit, we had to stop. We went back to them with online training, online modules, but they're like, our budget is restricted now. We have to focus on other areas. So similarly, all the other companies, other organizations, they know they need this, especially how to manage stress and mental health related topics, because that is big now. People don't know how to handle what is happening with COVID. You have people who lose their jobs, and then companies are downsizing, where people have to multitask and do a lot of things at the same time. But they cannot prioritize this because the budget is needed for basic survival.
Yeah,
So we are affected in terms of expanding. We are still trying in different venues, different avenues to reach out to the people who really need this.
Right.
Yeah.
Izan, you know, one of the things, you talked about audiences, right? But there's also this other part of the ecosystem, you know, the corporate sponsors, the people who've used the arts, you know, to brand themselves, but also perhaps do a bit of CSR. What are you hearing from the industry? I mean, are they now saying, oh, this is a lost cause, you know, let's give up on 2020, maybe 2021 will be okay? What are you hearing?
So, I mean, that's an interesting question, because I think next month we also have a forum about corporate funders on the arts. You will see and notice that some of the usual funders have sort of paused their support for the arts. And it's not a surprise, because I think some of the funding is then repurposed or reallocated for other crises that has come about because of COVID-19. But at the same time, our artists are also essential frontline workers to us. They are there for exactly what you've said. There are mental health communities that need that. There's still autistic children who are at homes that still need to be engaged with. So hence why we have in April sort of repurposed our funds for the artists so they can do that. But also at the same time, under the Prime Minister's announcement recently in June, they have announced the Penjana program and the plans to sort of reactivate and recover all the businesses that have been impacted by it. So 10 million is allocated for the arts, and all of it will be carved out all for different artists of different sectors: performing arts, visual arts, independent music, and now craft.
10 million. Okay, Izan, tell me honestly, what is 10 million? It sounds like a drop in the bucket of what will be needed. I mean, you know, yeah, 10 million enough?
Yeah, I know what you mean, but also bear in mind that 10 million is from a bigger allocation of 150 or 190 million worth to benefit the creative industries. It comes in a form of different grants. It comes in the form of grants, and some of the grants being also managed by us. So the other grants covers art house film, literature, digital live events as well. Can apply for grants under My Creative Ventures.
Okay, and I must say, you know, because we can't always rely on government and taxpayer money to kind of carry on with our work and our lives. I mean, when you think about your work, Kogi, very quickly, before we go to the break, do you rely on government, corporate sponsors, your business? In your own mind, what's most important in the mix to kind of do the kind of work you want to do?
We do rely very heavily on foundations, corporate foundations, and we do get a little bit of support from government. We have gotten a grant from Magic and now CENDANA. But besides that, mostly is corporate foundations, because to get the support for art-related program in the government is not that easy. I'm sure Izan agrees with this. So we are really glad that, you know, CENDANA is here to actually facilitate this and to see the importance of using the arts for community-driven programs. Because
right, and we'll come back to that, and we'll touch on the question of social enterprise related to the work. I think it's a very interesting model. Again, you know, moving away from dependence solely on the state. So, okay, we'll take a short break, and we'll be back with more on Let's Talk. Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Sharaad Kuttan. With me, Izan Satrina for CENDANA, the Cultural Economy Development Agency, and also Koggelavani Muniandy. She's the director of Goodkids Malaysia, recipient of the Arts Organization Funding Program that CENDANA runs. So, Izan, tell us, what is the Arts Organization Funding Program?
So it's one of our many programs that we've rolled out, and we started last year as a pilot. To support arts organizations registered under ROS, so Register of Society, so Persatuan, or Register of Companies, so Sendiran Berhad. And this year we are hoping in cycle to expand it to also partnerships as well to be able to apply. Now the program supports organizations in either these three categories: making art, bridging art, and intermediaries. So Kogi here comes under bridging art, where their work really supports and engages different communities. And we fund up to 150,000 ringgit. It can cover rental of venue, utilities, salaries, making sure that we preserve the manpower in these arts organizations.
So kind of institutional funding.
Yes.
Okay.
Marketing as well as upskilling. So whatever they need to do, but for the period of 12 months, we're hoping that each organization, once approved, can apply for a cycle for 3 years. So later on, they will be eligible for the second and the third year as a way to stabilize them and also expand their capacity, and hopefully in return, they will do the same for the other members of the arts.
So what is the process like? I mean, how do you get the word out there? Who's been applying? Is it limited to Klang Valley and so on? So give us some details.
So for arts organization funding, when we piloted it, it is Klang Valley, but this year we've expanded it nationwide. There are 2 cycles this year. If you missed the recent cycle, you can apply in October. First week of October, the program opens. Generally, everyone is directed to our website. And when we open call, we do try to wawarkan secepat mungkin, whether it's interviews, whether it's promotion online, whether it's marketing, advertising, PR, we do it all, right? And we try to get it out so people can apply quicker. Now, generally, our programs are for 8 weeks. We do a call, you apply within 8 weeks. We then evaluate, get approved within the next 4 to 8 weeks. We have since then cut it short to 2 months. So you apply dalam 4 minggu saja, and we process and approve it within the next 4 weeks. So within 2 months, we're hoping to help the community immediately. And that's because of what has happened recently. So instead of taking a slightly longer period of time to make sure that all these applications are evaluated, we are making sure we have the right manpower to evaluate quicker, swifter, so that the industry gets the money first.
Right, okay, Kugi, tell us, how did you come and how did Good Kids come to know about the program, and how did you see yourself? Did you see yourself as a kind of natural fit for the kind of the structure, the funding structure that was set up for you?
Yeah, so we were already in the art scene, and we were doing theatre productions and performances, and we had trainers who were from the arts community. So word travels around, and then someone told us that, hey, you should consider CENDANA funding. They are opening up for arts organization, especially those who are doing art program for community, which is exactly what we're doing. So that is when we contacted, and we submitted the application. And when I read the eligibility criteria, it was pretty straightforward, and we fit in immediately, because it's arts community. Okay. And they wanted to see the impact within the community and how we can uplift them.
Right.
Yeah.
How typical, Izan, is Good Kids of the kind of recipients you got? I mean, what kind of spread do you have when it comes to recipients?
Oh, we have predominantly artists from the top 5 markets: Klang Valley, KL, Selangor, Sabah, Sarawak, Perak, and Penang, then Johor, and the rest. They're predominantly artists, individuals, collectives, and only now more and more arts organizations, especially when we've opened it up nationwide. Social enterprises, in that sense, very rare. So it's very interesting to have received your application, and we're very happy to also support that. But by changing some of the provisions in our terms of reference, we've also accepted applications that look into art therapy and different ways of using the arts for engaging different communities.
Why did you choose to do that, Izan?
Because there is not strong support for artists who also specialize and engage different communities. When we rolled out, yes, no doubt, we focused predominantly on the professionals in the usual traditional or contemporary art scene, but more and more, especially with COVID, we have seen a lot of our artists also affected by not going out at all and require some assistance. So with assistance from us, we can help online, but there are other ways we feel artists have their own magic touch. And they, Sharaad, from our arts education program that we did, we hosted these kids from an Orang Asli school, Sekolah Melut Asli. They have never really makan KFC. Part of their lunch, we've funded KFC. We supported their bus and their insurance, whatever they needed. Some of them didn't eat the KFC so that they could bring it home to their parents. And some of them were so excited, they gave all the CENDANA team members a hug because they've never experienced the arts in such a way. And it's people like Koggi who can do that for us, because we're such a small team. We need other organizations to help us.
Right, wonderful. Koggi, tell me a little bit about how the funding will be used, you know, and what you look for in terms of, I mean, do you think in deliverables and what, you know, and specific programs that you'll be running as a consequence of getting the funding?
Okay, so a little bit just to add on what Izan said as well just now is this kind of funding program is necessary not only for community work. You know, from the work that we do, we are developing interest in arts. We are potentially developing future artists. We have seen that in the programs that we do. You know, some of them develop very strong interest in visual arts. We do bucket drums, so they become very good at drumming, music, and theatre. So it is essential to grow the art scene. And talking about deliverables, so there's a guideline that is actually provided by CENDANA, which is quite, it's specific, but because of the COVID, you know, they are actually willing to allow us to re-strategize. Like we had to change from theatre performance, a drum performance, into an exhibition now. So the exhibition is going to happen in February, and our timeline also has to change because we had lost about 3 months of classes with the kids. So we need to catch up and all that. So the deliverables are quite fluid based on approval by CENDANA.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And I understand you work with kids in low-cost housing flats, the PPR flats. And what is specific to their situation that makes the COVID context particularly challenging? You know, whether it's access to technology or, you know, going to school or not going to school. What is the challenge there?
So the biggest challenge when COVID happened was it completely disconnected us from our beneficiary groups. The PPR community have very, very low access to technology. Most of the parents don't have smartphones. Even if they have, they don't have data or they don't know how to use it. So it took us at least a month before we could actually get in touch with them. And thank God we had a partner organization that was working in the community. They were taking care of more of the welfare stuff, you know, supplying food, and also we got to the kids through them. This was very challenging because we had no clue whether the kids were doing fine, they were not doing fine, and finally when we got in touch with them, they were like, when are we going to see you guys? When is class going to start, you know? So that was very challenging for us when COVID happened.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
We'll take another break. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned to Let's Talk. Welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm Sharaad. With me, Izan and Koggi. Izan's from CENDANA, which is the Cultural Economy Development Agency, and Koggi is with Goodkids Malaysia. Services kids in PPR flats, low-cost housing flats, bringing art therapy and working with kids for self-esteem and empowerment. I think that was how you explained it to me. Very interesting because the issue of social enterprise. And Izan, you had said that this is something that's quite unusual in the art scene, right? The idea that you know, an organization might mix its model for funding in order to become self-sufficient potentially. Yes. I mean, the future, Izan, you know, especially if this is going to be a long, deep recession, there's going to be much less money around. The states already, we have problems with the price of crude and such. How can artists adapt? Should they be looking at models like the ones that are run by Goodkids Malaysia, social enterprise, in order to do the kind of work they want to do?
Well, I think a lot of the arts organizations or individuals have different jobs. It's quite normal for one to have a day job and evening only practice arts. That's a module that we've all traditionally we're quite accustomed to that. But there are models, other models as well, where the organization sustains itself from curating festivals, curating talks, and a lot of the income comes from that, getting their artists into festivals, and then dorang berkarya. They only create their work. Now that most live events that has been quite challenging for them, and some of them have taken other jobs like jual kuih ataupun grab driving, as a way to sustain at the moment. Now is the best time to reflect on what sort of or what options do they have, whether they want to pivot to other areas. But social enterprise is obviously one option as well. There are other options where they can sort of partner with different organizations, especially animation, which is booming right now during COVID period. Everyone's going online to watch animation, Agent Ali, Womo Boy. We have been trying to partner our communities with this different sector so that the arts and cultures and the stories and music from our scene can be translated onto that platform as well.
Right, and it's a very difficult question and a conversation because there are all these variations. I mean, Kogi, I understand that you are a classical Veena player, you're a classical in music proponent, and you're also a telecommunications engineer. So very interesting. I mean, do you talk to people in the creative industries and people doing the kind of work that you're doing? Do you think of really about the future, what the pandemic, with the recession, and just the changing nature of work and what people will want to fund or be part of? What are you thinking the future might bring for projects like yours?
Okay, so if you ask me, based on the experience, we've been running this since 2015, and sustaining in the arts industry is really not easy. That is the reason why we went into corporate training. Mind Movers Academy was established because we tried just doing annual shows and doing gigs, bucket drum gigs for corporates. It was not enough to sustain. So anyone who's going to go into this field, you have to think about financial sustainability first.
Yes.
And then you think about how you can impact the community, how you can create your beneficiary program. Otherwise, it's going to be a tough ride. We had the tough ride. If we didn't have enough financial assistance from government organizations like CENDANA, Magic, and also other corporate foundations who are supporting us, we would be really struggling. Yeah, so in the future, I would really strongly suggest those who want to go into this area, look into financial sustainability first, create your business opportunity. How are you going to generate your revenue? And how much do you need? Do the projection, and then you look into the beneficiary program. Yeah.
Right, okay, very interesting. Izan, I know you talk to people in government a lot, and the creative industries was supposed to be a generator of, there was an economic proposition there. It wasn't just for the love of the arts, right? Jobs and all the ecosystem that was supposed to be created. The premise of that, has that been challenged significantly by the pandemic? And then if that's the case, then where next with this idea of the creative industries?
Absolutely. When CENDANA was mooted, we were trying to address a gap where we would develop and promote cultural economy. But cultural economy, of course, in general parameters would mean jobs, export, revenue, GDP, percentages of this and that. Slowly, we shifted our narrative to talk about how we contribute to the sustainability of the artist first, before talking about jobs and revenue. And I think the yardstick for us is to ensure that the communities can continue doing their work with some funding from us. And that's a story we're telling now internally to our communities. I think with the other government agencies, their parameters may be different. It may be from a social perspective, and a lot of arts councils around the world have changed their parameters from economics to social impact. We haven't moved towards that as yet, but we've changed our narrative slightly. It is still somewhat economic, but it's more sustaining, contributing to your sustainability as an artist.
Right. There's also this other thing, the impact of closed borders on tourism and mass tourism, and many of the arts kind of fall under tourism. City branding, creating of festivals that are global and bringing people in, and so on and so forth. Where do you think, Izan, that's going to go? I mean, it looks pretty grim.
It looks pretty grim because the borders are closed and we don't know when that's going to open. But at the moment, it's an opportunity for us to engage the locals first. Anything at all, start from home.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Right? I think you said it all. Okay, last word for you, Kogi. What would you like, people to know about the work of Goodkids Malaysia, now supported by CENDANA and its arts organization funding program? How can people kind of plug into that or aid you or support the work that you do?
They can always visit our website, goodkids.com.my, and we are now focusing on setting up an exhibition next year So those who are interested in, being part of that or supporting us in many ways, the best thing is come and witness the exhibition. That's what we most of us need. Yes, in terms of funds, we are covered. Yeah, thank God for that. And what we need is for the people to come and see the work that we are doing. And people need to change their mindset. A lot of them have a mindset that, oh, locally created art might not be that great. So that mindset shift is really important. We don't want to just promote our workers. Oh, look at this, cute kids doing some work in a PPR. It's not that. It's of good value. The art that is produced is of good value. You don't just come and watch that because you have, soft spot. Sympathy, no.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Well said. Thank you very much, both of you, for being on the show. I've been speaking to Koggelavani Muniandy, she's the director of Goodkids Malaysia, and also Izan Satrina Mohd Sallehuddin, founding CEO of the Cultural Economy Development Agency of CENDANA. This is Let's Talk. I'm Sharaad Kuttan, only for Astro AWANI.